Where is everybody? It's time. Well, I'll share my own projects with myself, maybe. We'll see.
Hi.
Hi, Heidi.
Fleming is alone.
Well, there's Joachim too. Hello, Joachim.
Hey, Fleming, good to see you.
Hello, Ron.
Hey, Heidi. Oh, Ron. Hey, Ron, how's it going?
I thought I was going to be all alone. So there was only me, but then suddenly you all showed up.
Hello.
Hi.
I think I don't hear you.
You don't? Well, we're talking, so it's
No,
probably
I have
you.
to check my settings here.
Okay. Hello, Gina. Nope, nobody's wearing hats today. Hello, Anna. And there's Doug. Okay, everybody's making a lot of noise, but we're almost done with that. Okay, so today it's about projects, like what projects we have and how it's going or not going. The idea is maybe to share on something a little focused that we're working on, any of us or each of us or all of us, whatever happens, and maybe assist each other in at least being present with it in some fashion. So let me see. So any of you, how's your project going? Otherwise, I'll start by myself. I'm not that good at having projects that are really clearly defined. I'd like to be better at it, where I can say, this is my project, this is the target, this is the objective, this is what I've done so far. But often it's not that clean. Like one thing I would be better at, and that still sounds rather vague, is to sort of package or have a system of distributing or delivering some of the things I've done in my life that are useful. For example, writings. As one example, I wrote a couple of manuals in being a counselor or a therapist, essentially, called Transformational Processing. The first one is called Transformational Dialogues. And they were, in their time, quite popular and successful in what they were doing, but I just left them alone on a website where you can still download them, but I'm not doing anything with them. And I thought the nicest thing to do would be just to give them away for free, which is true, but at the same time, that doesn't generate particularly anything around it. So there could be a network or a support system. And for that matter, it could be something that flowed value back to me. Like if I do something of value, it would make sense that I got paid for that in some sense. Instead, I get paid for things I don't care as much about. So there's a little bit of a problem there. So I'd like to maybe package some of the things I either already have or that I can fairly easily produce that will share something that I know or that I'm good at or that I can do, so that it could be useful for other people and generate a bit of sort of momentum. And I think even though I have a little bit of distaste for anything that looks like marketing, it sort of requires some sort of marketing thinking. Like in internet marketing terms, one would have some kind of funnel, which is sort of a strange term, but which is sort of like if a lot of people know about something you do and they maybe think positively about it, you have a website or you have a Facebook group, and people drop by and maybe they get something of value, or they watch a video and they move on and they kind of like it. And you have a lot of people like that. Then you have maybe a smaller group of people who maybe participate, like we do here, for example. If this was sort of my product, then that would be, we would have a more intense group of people who participated. And if one had that, or that could be people who had like taken a class or gone to a workshop or something like that. And then you could have an even smaller number of people who want something more. They want like intensive personal something, consulting or coaching or something like that. So if we were talking money, it would be that lots of things are available for free. A smaller number of things is more intense, requires more participation, maybe costs something. And then an even smaller number of things could be sold for handsome amounts and make me rich and famous. Anyway, that's the idea of the sort of internet marketing funnel. And I both find distaste in that kind of thing. At the same time, it's a somewhat logical way of structuring something that needs to move. You can't just sort of write a book and then put it in one place and hope people will find it. I mean, you need to sort of build up something around it, some excitement, or make it part of other places where things are happening. So once in a while I think about things like that and try to apply some of that to my life. So currently I'm in another phase where I'm thinking of maybe I should be doing some writing some things in more organized manner, or structure some of the things I've already done so that it can get in the hands of people who need it, instead of just sort of gathering cobwebs on a web page I haven't touched for 15 years. Anyway, so it's a project that's moving a little bit, but at the same time, it's not, I don't necessarily know exactly what to do with it, but there you go.
Thanks, Flemming. I guess one of the things I would point out is that the very definition of a project is that it has a known beginning and a known end. And so if what you're doing is something that is very continuous, that's not a project, really. So I think if you want to create a project, you have to take it into something that is a manageable chunk, know what the beginning is, the end is, and what you're going to take to get there, so you know how, if you're getting there. And that's the effort. So I'll use my example. I have a project. The project is writing a book. I put a lot of effort into it a while ago, and I said it will be done in 2 years, and I will be done when I've interviewed this many people. So I knew what my endpoint was. But that project is now sitting out here like a little monkey on my shoulder because I started a business. My business is not a project. My business is something that is longer term and evolving. So it's organic, and it's more interesting in that regard. So I would say it's challenging to call something a project unless you really want to call business. What am I doing? What am I working on? Unless we have a freer definition of project. That's it. So I'll open that up.
So I can certainly see that sometimes one might fail at something, we could call it, by not being specific enough. I'd like to one day do something, but because it's too fuzzy, we're not really taking definite steps. So the moment you call it a project, I want to do this, I'm going to write this book, and you have an idea of what that implies. It's going to be a real book that will be published, that will be on Amazon, and people will read it, kind of thing. That's fairly definite. So I could, like, if we apply it to me, I mean, I could choose what is it actually I'm talking about. Do I want to market my manuals I've already written if I really commit to that, which maybe I will, then there's sort of definite things to that. Then there's some editing, reworking there in an old Word file where the format doesn't even work for Word any longer, but it needs to end up in something that either is simply an Amazon book or that has been repackaged in another fashion, that maybe you join a website and work with other people on parts of it. I don't know. But so the question is, does one need to define in advance what exactly it is? Like, I kind of like that things evolve along the way. So do I need to promise in advance what it is? Anna?
Well, I was wondering whether you are still the same person that you were 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
whether, yes, basically.
No, I'm not. So I mean, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So whether what you wrote then still applies, or whether you would need to rework it and make it much more part of your life now, and then it might make more sense to actually put some effort into it. But something that has been gathering dust for 15 years, that feels like, trying to resuscitate a corpse, more or less. I mean, things happen so quickly. I would think that 15 years, it's a lifetime.
Yeah. So part of my experience is if you just try to push it, if I think, well, I have these books lying around, I should really be doing something with them, that's not a very good driver. That doesn't really make it happen. Like the things that happen, somehow it needs to become alive now. So I'm more thinking about it like I have this resource, like if I have a gold mine in my backyard, I haven't felt like digging it up yet, but with the right kind of flow to it, it would be a good place to start. So it's a little bit more like that. I feel there's something there, but it would need to be reworked or repackaged into what is alive for me now. It just seems a little bit like a low-hanging fruit, like it would be kind of easy if I've already sort of written it. It already has a following. To some degree. My books were translated into Russian at the time, and I had a lot of interest from Russian psychotherapists, and that in itself is sort of weird and interesting. But so there's some untapped potential, maybe. But again, it's some shoulds, and that's not really what pushes it forward. So the question is also,
why did you not follow it up at the time? If you had that much interest, why didn't it flow at the time?
Good question. Well, some things did flow at the time. This was an example of I simply responded to a demand at the time. At the time, when I wrote these books, it was in the 90s. I had a practice as a therapist in LA, and I saw people every day, and I was doing very well with that. I also was learning a lot. I was sort of expanding into new areas. I learned about NLP and hypnosis and different things, and I integrated a lot of what I learned into my techniques at the time. So it was very alive, and it was something I was learning. And then a couple of people in Germany asked me if I could come and train them in my techniques, and I didn't have any materials. So we set a date in a couple of months into the future, and I got really busy, and I wrote the training manual for training these people. So essentially, they paid me what I considered very well at the time for traveling to Germany and spending a few weeks training them in what I knew. But to do that, I wrote my manuals for that specific purpose. And I was kind of surprised afterwards about how generally useful they were and that other people were interested in them. That it wasn't what flowed. What flowed was I'm going to go and work with these guys. And they were very happy and everything worked out well. And then I had these manuals afterwards. And for a while, I would sell them in that very few orders, but I would take like a stack of them. I would go to Kinko's and copy a stack of them and bind them in spiral bound. And it was a bit of a hassle. And I thought that's too much work for mean, I charged $50 for them. That was nice, and they cost only 20 to produce, but still, it was a hassle. So instead of that, I just left them on a web page, and people could download them and print them out themselves. So what flowed was not really making it into more of a movement, but more somebody needs me, I'll help them, and okay, and whatever people want to do with the pieces, that's fine.
So my intuitive feeling is that this has done its work, whatever it was, in you growing in a certain way in order to do these manuals, but to go back to them really doesn't feel, I mean, that's the problem with money. You know, we attach to things because they seem to, well, we need money, and of course it would give you something, but still it will tie you to something which it just doesn't feel like it's alive for you. It's
Which is correct. So yeah, I agree with you. So my query or my quest is maybe to find if I can find something that's alive in it. So rather than starting something totally from scratch, the things I have done or the artifacts that I have created, maybe they can be part of something new. Because also to some degree they represent something that to some degree was a finished product. I mean, I finished these manuals. They're pretty damn good, if I can say so myself. Lots of people really liked them, and they changed their lives.
They're not you now. They're not you now. Sorry for interrupting. And yeah, it feels like when you say rather than start something new, why not? Why not really just express who you are now in whatever it is that you're going to do? I mean, does that seem too difficult?
No, I'm totally with that. So it's also a little bit like, I feel if one has done something, it would be nice that it was sort of a finished package. Like if you wrote a book, then it would be nice if one could get it on Amazon, even if you don't care about what you wrote any longer. It's what you wrote, and it would be nice if somebody who cared, they could go and read it, and that's fine. So if I hadn't sort of made the last step of putting it on Amazon, it would be a little bit of a shame that I could mention I wrote this book, but you can't read it. Maybe it's not.
I feel where we are in the world at the moment, it needs to be more than just nice. It needs to be something really, I mean, I guess I was reading this morning a lot of stuff about an imminent war between America and Russia, and the fact that it's more or less sort of started. And that's giving me a feeling of urgency in what we do and how we need to grow. So yeah, maybe that's feeding into the way that I'm reacting to what you're saying, but my feeling is it's really important for us as people to grow in some way to prevent this catastrophe happening.
I also do agree that, I mean, a good driver for actually doing something is a sense of urgency. It doesn't have to be negative, but it has to be sort of a flow. I have to do that right now. And what I'm mentioning with my books, I don't feel like that. It's a sort of a should, that it would be a good idea, it would be nice, which is not really what makes things move. But on the other hand, it could provide some clues. Things that have moved in the past, there could be things learned from why did that move? Why did that thing work and not the other thing? So I can still sort of process my experience of what I've gathered, but you're totally right. It has to be something that's alive now. But on the other hand, I would like something that's alive, that actually flows, rather than just hanging around talking vaguely about things we could do. So I feel a certain urgency to have something that I feel urgently about.
Thank you. Hi, this is Joachim from Brooklyn, New York here. Good to be back. See everyone here. Actually, I've skipped a few sessions, maybe 20 or 30, because of projects, right? So I want to circle back on the notion of projects. I think there's been a change over what is a project. How do you define a project? Where's the beginning and the end of the project? I don't think projects are like standalone anymore. They used to be in a traditional sense. In an organizational context, you have projects that have a beginning, middle, and end, right? And they're funded, and they have a budget, and they have a team member working on this stuff, and then they have a result at the end, right? Or in the personal context, Gina, you mentioned you write a book. Of course, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and you have a deliverable at the end, right? So that's your project in the classic sense. But I do think, that notion has changed because nowadays, I mean, me personally, I'm involved in like 10 different projects at the same time. And they have fuzzy beginnings and fuzzy middle pieces and fuzzy ends, right? So I do like to jump into projects over here, help a group out and see what are they doing and give them some advice to move their project further, or even become a project member and create something at the very end. But I really don't know where it's going to go, right? So I do like to join them because I do like to see things developing, and especially not from an individual perspective, but more from a group perspective, right? So I'm really drawn to projects nowadays where you co-create stuff, right? We're not sitting in your own cabinet and you write your own thing or create your own thing, but rather try to figure out ways to work together. So this whole interdependence to me is really important nowadays, because if we can't manage that, and then we're back to Anna's point here, we can't get anything done, then we'll really end in catastrophe, right? So this has been for me also a big learning journey over the last couple of months, maybe years, working on several projects. And how do you bring people together and sort of align them, start to make sense, create a safe space, a safe zone, around this group of people and do your project work, right? So that's a fundamental piece, I think, here to really be engaged and do these projects. I know I'm speaking a little bit on the meta level here. What is project? How do you make projects successful? Quote unquote successful. Who knows what that really means? But maybe we can dive later into some more concrete projects I'm working on. But I just wanted to throw that piece out there, the notion of a shift in how I see projects evolving now over time, and going in that's away from, they have a beginning, middle, and end. Certainly there are certain task-oriented pieces in there, right? But the classic way, if you think Microsoft project, Gantt charts, timelines, A, B, C, here's the end piece. That to me is sort of the horrific past. That was my organizational life. I had to do that, of course, and it still exists. It's out there, right? But I'm no longer drawn to that. So I want to have more, so fuzzy projects, as I call them, and see where they take us together, right, as a group. Okay, I'll stop here.
Are we all sharing our projects, or are we sticking to one and talking about that one?
No, we're jumping around a little bit, but it from past history is not so much fun if we have sort of a list of everybody has to go in order. That's a little bit boring. So whatever you're inspired to do, you feel like talking, talk.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a project. I tried to think of something concise. I have a lot of projects, but this one's pretty quick. About 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I decided, well, I always thought I was really strong. When I was a kid, I was a tomboy and I played all the sports and I did everything. And I had a chance to do a few bench presses with an empty bar that was about 1 inch in diameter. And that was pretty hard. So I decided that I was going to use the weights that I have left over from the kids, and I would lift them and I would get strong. So I started using YouTube and learning how to do that. And finally, I got to the point where I could lift all the weights I had, and I had to go buy new ones. And so that was my reward. My reward was to go and get more weights, Olympic weights. And then I quickly learned that I was going to get hurt. So I bought this giant cage thing so I don't get hurt. And for 3 years, I've been lifting weights with the goal of being able to bench press my weight and squat my weight. So I'm 15 pounds away from squatting my weight. That's the highest I've done, but I don't do it regularly because I'm not really ready for that yet. I discovered upon doing it 3 times. But, so those are my weights. I do bench presses, squats. I do this one's pretty good. I can do 200 pounds, putting it on my lap, laying down like an incline and lifting your butt up off the floor to the ceiling. And I can do 85 pounds on my bench press. And I can do 100 on my squat. And also I'm getting a little personal here, and I'm going to share. I wear these costumes when I do it. And I have a lot more costumes than that. And I film it. And and I've been doing that for 3 years, and I have all the progress documented. And so you heard about my beginning. In the beginning, I couldn't even put those weights in the car. And the end will be, well, it won't be the end because I hope I keep going, but my goal is the 100 pounds, or my weight. So, so yeah, that's my project. That's the one I've decided to share.
I think that's very cool. Now we want to see some of the videos.
There is one on Facebook from, well over a year ago. And I just recently thought I would put another one together. But I have to actually, I don't wear a lot of clothes when I do this. The other part of my project is to become okay with me. So I have a wall of mirrors right there. And I do this either in a thong or something very sexy or naked. So that, I mean, really, it was very hard to look. But you know what? It was a really growth experience, and that's part of this, is to just be okay with whatever I am. So I have to get videos with clothes on to show that. So anyway, there. I was a little too transparent, perhaps, but.
No, that was very cool. What I really like about that is it's a very personal thing. It's a project. It's something you want to do. It doesn't matter if that otherwise makes a difference for the world necessarily. It's what you choose to do, which is a growth experience for you. And there are some milestones, there are some deliverables in that, although if that changed, I think that would be fine too. But I find it very interesting to have that kind of project and something to overcome and something to look towards. Mm-hmm. And I would really like more ways of sort of sharing that or participating in that with other people. One doesn't even have to have the same kind of projects at all. It doesn't mean we all have to lift weights, but it's interesting to follow along on your project. Mm-hmm. So that also makes me think, like, yours is actually quite tangible, and there's like a target. So I'm wondering if that makes it easier than, like, I have some vague ideas. Joachim mentioned a bunch of projects. He didn't get very specific on what they were. So I'm just sort of wondering, is it easier to do projects that have clear outcomes and deliverables, whatever they may be? Then you can sort of report on the progress on them. The danger is that it becomes too sort of industrial, that you decide in advance. That's not how we work. Any ideas, Anna?
Well, the thing that I heard that really seems significant is that it's to do with accepting yourself. I guess mainly physically, but even that is quite a huge step. And I wouldn't say that that's an easy deliverable or that there is an end product in that. I mean, it seems to me that it's an ongoing task that we all have, really, to be able to face ourselves in the mirror. And I think it possibly, you know, gets more difficult as you get older, even if you're doing a load of weightlifting. So, you know, I don't see an end point to this particularly.
Well, I do have a specific goal. I do have a specific goal of the 100 pounds, or well, it's 120. But anyway, so that would be in my mind that I would have reached that goal. But I don't have to reach that goal, because here's my number one goal. And this is my sign on my wall. Rule number one, don't fall down. And also I have a goal of being very precise about it and symmetrical. So I don't know if you can see this, but see this line on the wall? That tape? In the mirror, you can see that tape. So I get really, really symmetrical. I line myself up with that, and I keep the bar real level, because I want to be developed evenly. So I really do feel like I have a goal. I just want to get to that 100 pounds. I hope there are some side effects that are good. I am comfortable with myself now. And in the beginning, it was horrifying to look at the tape. It was like, oh God. And I felt really sorry for my husband when I looked at those beginning tapes. But now he comes down and watches.
So I'm wondering whether you had a certain picture of yourself that you wanted, an image, you know, that you wanted to achieve, or whether it was really accepting yourself as you are, or did those two things sort of merge together somehow, that you could accept yourself if you became more like this image of you that you wanted, so that your husband wouldn't have to suffer, so that you could please him too?
I think you're right, Anna. I think it was both, because actually, I don't look that different. I'm just a shrimpy person. I was never overweight. I'm definitely much, much, much stronger, but I didn't get big. You know, you can see that I'm a little human. But I did get used to it, and I did improve my posture. Okay. I think posture is a lot when it comes to this. But I definitely have goals on this, and there definitely was a beginning, a middle. Hopefully there won't be an end, because maybe the next project will be to continue it and be healthy. So, but you're right. To accept myself was very much of a mental thing. And that probably wasn't the very beginning. The beginning was taping it to see how symmetrical I am, if I'm doing it right, and taping from the side, you know, because I really don't want to get hurt. In fact, I have all these couch cushions, and I line them up underneath my butt. So if I fall, even if the weight gets caught, but I still want to land on the cushions, you know, I don't want to get hurt. But anyway, that's when I realized that had to be part of it, is that I had to not, you know, be embarrassed about how I looked when I looked at myself, you know. So anyway, that's one of my projects, and I think someone else should have a turn before anyone hears anything else from me. And Fleming, I love your shirt. Very nice.
It's a guy smoking a pipe or something, and then it sort of has this creative dream thing coming out.
I don't see the guy.
Oh, the guy's like sitting there. There you go. He's on a chair.
Okay.
And there you have it. Yeah.
I love it.
Very nice. Yeah, I can go a little bit. I was very much in sync with what you said, Fleming, about the old things. I have also written a book, but I have never published it on voice. I was discouraged when I sent it to 3 or 4 editors, some in German, some in Italian, and they sent it back or even didn't answer. And so I left it. And so I think, should I really put the time into it to rewrite it and do it? So that is one thing. I felt very much in this situation. And getting older, you think, what do you really do with your time? It's not anymore when you are 30, you just do something and wait for something. On the other hand, I have really a problem with doing real projects in the sense of beginning now. And yeah, I did the series of the conscious aging, and this is a project. Yeah, in this sense, I'm doing projects. But for me, when I did the feminine power coaching about 10 years ago, not yet 10 years ago, but almost. And I went into this recognition of how humans work underneath even the psychological level. The human, let's say, the human shadow in some way. Then I thought I want to bring that out. And now I sort of connect with Joachim said, I would like to do it in co-creativity. And at the beginning, it seemed to work. Some people we had a group going on for 3 years, more or less, and then people withered out. And so I'm back in my old false belief I have to do everything alone and do everything alone. Create all these conversation groups and whatever. But what I really would like to do is to get the message out into the world and co-create something which is valid and is doing something to more on the internal level, not so much on the external level, but also on the external level, that we can meet the challenges which are coming now. And at the moment, they're even worse than ever than before when I started. And so my desire would be, it's not a project, but a desire to find collaboration in doing something together which makes sense. It's not only woo-woo, and it's not only technical stuff, but sort of getting things together and find a good way of communication and co-creation, which I desire very much, but I have never really found. Maybe because of me, because of my pattern. I'm alone and I have to do everything myself. So I don't know. Project is going out into the world and do something what I can do. And partly I do it because I'm rehearsing now for the conference in Hungary, and the title is Becoming Visible, Getting Out of Invisibility. So taking myself as an example, but I don't feel very visible yet and not very effective yet. So the project could be being effective, not necessarily alone. Okay.
So I'm an outlier because my project starts when I open my eyes in the morning and it ends when I close them at night. And I'm completely sort of engaged with the idea of where I put my time and attention is doing. And I contribute what I can, where I can, when I can. And I've decoupled contribution to the commons in terms of contributing value from the industrial quid pro quo frame, the transactional frame. So I just have to focus on contributing. And I'm in the process of grappling with setting up channels and means for value to flow back to me, but I'm not focusing on generating that flow. I'm just focusing on enabling it. And that's a work in process. But I'm getting there. There's no marketing in there, but there is signaling. Signaling is an important thing to let people know they can. And I've also, I've disconnected from time as the primary driver. So what that enables is if you're focused on project and endpoint and result and output and all that stuff, which for me is sort of toxically industrial, it's sort of how we got here and facing the problems we're facing, then I'm not present in the now for collaboration and connection with other people. The other shoe of that is ownership, proprietary ownership and control. So if I'm really preoccupied and focused with my creation or formulation or a piece of the puzzle as a sort of single, egocentric endeavor, then I'm also at risk for not finding opportunity or value or experiencing true collective and collaborative generative potential with others. Because if I'm vested in mine, then I'm in a competitive frame. I'm not in a collaborative frame. So I also had to get rid of ownership, like the idea of something being mine versus something being ours. And so when you start getting rid of like these really big rocks that are part of the paradigm and the imprint that we're currently operating under, it really changes the game dramatically in terms of experiencing stuff. And so I'm now completely a junkie of the emergent as a phenomena. And that in the here, in the now, in the present, the stuff that has energy as a co-created phenomena of multiple people focusing collective time and attention, but that's not a collective thing. That's a bunch of individuals making a choice that collectively results or produces a thing as a result. And so I believe in, first of all, these conversations are the source of our collective salvation, learning how to actually talk to each other and do us differently in the world. And so I started here, which is how do we do us together? How do we talk? How do we share? How do we evolve resonance and connection and alignment? Which is a lot harder than you would think it should be, but it is, because in the cultural paradigm we're in, that doesn't exist and isn't important and isn't even recognized. We're just supposed to do our job, plug in, be the cog in the wheel that we're assigned, and be a resource. So my project is actually my sort of center of gravity, I would say, is generative conversation. And I'm connected to a half a dozen different communities groups, and then I have one-on-one process work, collaborative process with 3 or 4 other people on specific things. And so I spend probably 30 hours to 35 hours a week in these spaces, and learning how to do this better, learning how we do this, learning what what increases the generative potential, what stops it cold, or what destroys it, and learning how to be a catalyst toward making it good. So, and what I'm finding is, emergently, lots of old-fashioned project type things do pop up, but the important thing isn't the project or the project expression or definition or words. It's the people that are experiencing the pull and the desire to invest their time and energy individually and with me and with others to, enact something or express something or realize something together. And I follow the energy, basically. not the undertakings, but the energy, and stuff that, you know, had energy 6 months ago, all of a sudden there's a ping from somebody who screened a video from 6 months ago who goes, what is that? And it comes back to life. But it's because there are human beings with the energy to bring it back to life. It doesn't have a life independent of that. It sort of doesn't exist. It's just out there, and I'm complete.
I just wanted to comment on that, Doug, and about something coming back to life. And it reminds me of what I was thinking in the beginning, Fleming, when you were talking about your project. And even though something doesn't seem to have much energy, sometimes if the shape of it is kind of left behind, I know there's some organisms or like cells that can pretty much die, but the form is there. And if the conditions return to bring it new life, even something that seems old and dead can take on new life. So I hope what you said, Doug, applies to what you were talking about, Fleming.
I think it does. And I'm very interested also in how to effectively share things when it's not necessarily clear where it goes or what the project is. Like, for example, I love the specificity of Cheryl's sharing here of what she's doing and how that it's very clear, it's very tangible, and there are some goals in it. But sometimes it's less clear, or we don't share things because we haven't quite made it into a big thing yet. Like I have I'm working on some physical things with like kettlebells and finding all the exercises I can for doing certain exercises right now that I'm really excited about personally. But it's not the sort of big long-term thing where I'm ready to set some goals and talk about it on Facebook and have everybody send me articles about it all the time. It's just that's a phase I'm going through that maybe that becomes a bigger thing, maybe not. I would like to feel safe, I could say, or having an environment where it's okay to be really excited about something this week and maybe next week I've moved on to something else. Because the trouble is in part that your friends will sort of remind you of the things you loved last week. So like they're going to forever bring you something like my mom at some point declared that she loves elephants, and everybody knew she loves elephants and she likes pictures of elephants, and elephants are so cute. And for the last 40 years, everybody has, every birthday, every Christmas, everybody brings her elephants. And finally she said she's totally fed up with elephants. No more elephants, please. Because people are friendly and they're trying to support what your thing is, but they're going to remember it forever. Like if one has clearly expressed this is my project, they're going to support it even when you've moved on, which is a little bit of a problem. Because I think nowadays I feel this, that it's more complex. Like I'm following the energy too. My project doesn't stay the same, but I would love to be able to express clearly what my passion is right now without it being stuck, without it being a sort of frozen abstraction that everybody's going to knock me over the head with for years. So, and I don't quite know how to do that, other than we are sort of already doing that. So by sharing more specifically, it's healthy, and we don't have to be stuck in what it is. So I don't know. I just like to sort of see more of it, because we often are a little too vague and abstract, where I'd like us to be as clear as Cheryl, like here's my weights, this is what I'm doing. I would hope for us to be more like that in some fashion, no matter what we're doing.
So everybody starts sending Fleming kettlebell stuff.
Kettlebell stuff, yeah, forever.
You know, I've encountered that too, Fleming. And I think sometimes it's not necessarily something that you're interested in, like elephants, even though it is, but it can also be just saying that you have an opinion about something. People then, they know so little about you except what the conversation is, you know, and you have a whole other life going on behind that. And then all of a sudden they make no room for your growth, that you may have changed your opinion on, let's say, the Russia thing, whatever, you know, that you're growing, that you're gathering information and exchanging, and that tomorrow you may have a different opinion. And people want to pigeonhole you into some old opinion. So sometimes it makes you not want to share, because then you've pigeonholed yourself. Like I'll never say, oh, I'm a person who, etc. You know, I try to avoid that at all costs. But I did discover something else. It's helpful in a way. It's helpful, but also it's amazing how much people want to give you credit and support you. Like, for instance, I had a challenge to do some stand-up comedy. And I did it. And I brought 19 people. I just asked all my friends and people showed up. Well, they won't show up for all the rest of them, I'm sure. But the point is, now they're like, go do that. You were good. We want to support you. You're a comedian. Oh, Cheryl, the comedian? You know, even though I am not. But the point is that that's kind of the universe supporting me too. If I wanted to do it, they're willing to accept it. You know what I mean? So there's a good side to that, even though I see what you mean.
Well, it's maybe also that we don't continue doing it. You said that that's the most clear thing people heard. Cheryl is doing stand-up comedy. Maybe it's 3 months ago since you said that, but it's still the most clear thing. So maybe if we could continue sharing our passion in a more dynamic way, they will realize that, well, today it's different things that you're doing. So that the challenge is maybe to sort of have enough bandwidth to see what are we doing, so we don't have to sort of oversimplify it into, oh, you're doing stand-up comedy. So that's also why, like, our little windows here, even though it's high resolution, is sort of too little bandwidth. I don't really see what you're doing. I mean, unless you sort of zoom back and show us your room and what are your things you're doing, which books have you lying around, what are you doing today? I kind of want to know, because it gives me a peripheral idea of what's actually important, which might not at all be what I think it is. So I sort of wish for us to have more bandwidth to be aware of what's hot for you, what's alive for you now. Because yeah, of course, that's what we want to support, not what you happened to do one day last year.
Exactly. No, never mind. No, what I was going to say is we aren't with each other all the time. And I don't mean us. I mean even everybody in our whole world. So when I meet somebody, our conversation is 100% of what I know about them. So you could really have a wrong impression. Then the second time you meet them, that was 50% of what you know about them. And it really gets diluted when you're with them a lot, but we aren't with each other a lot. So, you know, that's why people go to what they remember. You know, they remember that I did stand-up comedy and that's what I'm doing, but they aren't up on every minute of my life following me around like my cat. So.
So if you want what I'm doing, I'm finishing the series of Conscious Aging where Gina was part of. And I have the monthly women's group on English where Anna is part of and Tammy is part of. And I have a monthly group in German where I don't think you know anybody of them. And I'm struggling to find new people to want to come on the show. And I wonder if some of you want to come to the show. It's about not necessarily aging. I will finish the aging thing and take it maybe in autumn, but conversations that matter, where Fleming was there. And the thing is, I'm struggling with knowing if I want to continue to do that or not, if it is effective enough, you know. There are people coming and watching, but not really very many. So is it, as Tammy always says, it's enough that we talk with each other? Or do we not need to reach more people, inspire more people? Do we know if we inspire people and they do their own thing in the consequence of what we are doing? Is this enough that we think about that others might get the impulse by what we are doing? So to understand what I really need to do to to get my goal running to do more for the world, because I'm really very much in, how do you say, preoccupied. I'm an Enya type 4 type, so I'm really into the preoccupation business, and I can sort of contain it. But the last 2 years really in many ways were hard to ignore, let's say, and I do really think that everybody of us has to do something, and especially me. So how can I do it in the most effective way? I would appreciate also some feedback in that.
I love what you do, Anna or Heidi. I watched your video. I actually watched one of them, which was excellent. And but you know what? I understand what you're saying. It's like how many people are we really reaching? There aren't a lot of thumbs up. It's like we need marketing. We need to go back to the old world ways and take part in the world and put our marketing tentacles out and everything. That's how we get to be known, I guess. And so I find myself wondering how we reconcile that. And also, when it comes down to things like this, I've had the recurring thought that, isn't this what friends are? It's like you don't touch a lot of people, but you touch a few people, the ones that are close to you, the ones you get to know, even your group of friends, the friends that all gather up in my kitchen and eat all the food and, you know. And then maybe if it's good enough, like if what we do with our projects online are good enough, they tell other people to come and look. Just like when you're with your friends, if you had a good story, they tell other people the funny story, you know. But other than that, it's not reaching a lot of people, you know, without marketing or whatever.
Yeah, the marketing thing is like, I feel like Fleming, I really hate to go out and promote myself, you know, not even other people. It's easier to promote other people. So what I do with guests coming and so, but, you know, still, oh gosh, it feels like, I don't know, prostitution in some way.
So why do we feel bad about promoting ourselves when we would be happy to promote somebody else? I mean, is it because we think, oh, I'm being stuck up? You know, it's all about me. And is that a social construct? Can we just step outside of ourselves and treat ourselves like we would treat everybody else? I mean, I don't have the answer to this. It's a question. You know?
Well, there could be a reframe there of being of service, that it's not necessarily just us being well known, but will there be lots of other people out there who maybe will find great value in our conversation here or in whatever else we do? It's possible, I'm not sure. So in a certain way, we are keeping our value from them by keeping it sort of exclusive. Like you have to have quite some guts to show up to, for example, this meeting here. Lots of people will not necessarily be able to do that, but they might find value from this happening. So we could look at it differently. Sorry, I cut you off, Heidi.
Yeah, it was something about how to do it at the end, and then it's one thing, and the other thing, it has to do with this belief systems. You know, that's why I'd also do the talk about becoming visible. You know, the belief system. Are you good enough? What you know, things like that. And if it's easy for me, then it must be easy for others, and then it has no value. Things like that, you know. So it has no value, and then you promote it, and what is that? Things like that. I'm very well aware on the intellectual part of the thing, but it's still, I feel this hindering thing to. And how do I this promotion? I say, okay, I posted on Facebook, posted everywhere. Yeah, somebody's coming. So, but I don't see very much sharing of what we are doing. And so maybe it's not interesting enough. Yeah, aging is not very interesting. Death is not very interesting to most people. No, Gina probably can tell a story about that. You know, better keep it away from us. And yeah, and then marketing says you have to concentrate on one thing and not on so many things, like, you know. So I haven't found the way to do it in a good way without spending money, because I don't make any money. So I don't know.
I don't think that we really know yet, anyway, what it is that needs to happen. I mean, we're talking as though if we somehow convince more people to agree with us, that would make a difference in the world. But actually, we know from statistics that the majority of people actually, for example, don't want war, but that doesn't seem to make any difference. So, you know, I don't think it's not clear what it is that we need to do. We think maybe we just need to interest a few more people or somehow get a mass movement going. But those mass movements haven't actually achieved what needs to be, or what we feel needs to transform where we are into where we want to be.
You know, there is one mass movement that has gained ground over decades now, and that's the Burning Man movement. I mean, there are so many people, and it's in so many states now. And I was talking to one extremely brilliant person I know who goes every year. And he just looked into my eyes and he took my hands, and he's a young guy, maybe 30. And he took my hands and he said, there is magic there, and it's real. He said, it is real, and it is the movement that could save us. And the thing that Burning Man has is something that catches your eye, so you look at it, and it's got marketing, and it's got hype, and it's got all the things that all us little people doing our little things, we can see what makes things grow. In other words, I mean, I don't know how we translate that to our projects, but you know, you can see a principle there of the magic growing.
I think also to answer a little bit what we might have here, I don't think we have the answers that somehow need to be exported to everybody, but we might have something else, which is the willingness to stay in the uncertainty of that. That part of what we are doing here is feeling okay and a little uncomfortable, but okay in the space of we don't know what's going to emerge, but something probably will, and that might be new and different and strange and scary for other people. So I think there's some value in being aware of that or seeing that at a meta level. Is this something that maybe could or should be exported in some fashion? Is that useful for others? I'm not sure, but potentially it might be inspiring to others that it's okay to not know. I mean, I don't think we're the people who have the answers in some ways, on the contrary, but maybe that's cool.
I have another thing to add on the Burning Man idea, a principle, and that is that it's fun and it makes you want to engage. And that's one of the things I love about this group is, Fleming, you really do make it fun, and it's really nice to engage. And that's when the work gets done and people want to join in, like a barn raising. It's when you feel involved and you feel fun and you're exerting, and, you know. So sometimes I think that when we're quietly doing, you know, things, you know, that don't have all the pizzazz, that's where it gets lost, because people just want to look at something spectacular.
If you're working on something or doing something that is fun collaboratively, then that is when the work gets done. That's how it gets done. And really, that's the only way it can get done.
And now, not that it's fun, but we've sort of passed the hour. So if we can find a fun way of sort of summarizing what happened here and seeing how this experiment worked well or not, like looking at projects did this make sense? Did this work? What came out of it?
Yeah, I think it was a great experiment. Thank you, Fleming. It felt at times like a bit like a pressure cooker. You know, suddenly, you know, other things came out of this that we didn't intend to raise here today, and there's so many edges and corners that many of us have not explored yet. So it could be another beginning of another conversation here. Really haven't, gone down into the nitty-gritty of projects and beyond, right?
I don't think it really matters in the end what topic you decide. I think it is just the co-communication which is going on here, which is, as Doug says, it's sort of generative just to be talking like this. So yeah, I mean, I love being part of this, and it doesn't really seem to matter what we talk about.
And I'm now carrying around an expectation waiting for the announcement of Cheryl's YouTube channel. So that certainly, you've certainly planted a seed with a lot of pull when you're ready to generate the R or PG rated versions of the videos.
Believe me, I thought of it, but I fall into that category of who do I think I am? All stuck up, putting myself out there, and then I see some of the other ones, and I think, well.
If Kim Kardashian could make billions, literally being the poster child of having absolutely nothing to offer the world and no talent whatsoever, then I see absolutely no reason why you're pursuing a health and fitness and women's statement and process and self-realization victory as a narrative and a story. If you don't think that's not valuable compared to a lot of the other crap that's currently feeding minds, you're crazy.
Well, first of all, yes, I am crazy, but also I'm not a personal trainer. So I've thought of that too. I don't want someone doing something and getting hurt.
I do all sorts of things I am not certified, qualified, or credentialed to do. I don't really give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
If I'm good at it and people find it of value and helpful to them, then that's the only criteria, frankly.
Well, it would be fun, very self-indulgent,
And when your videos are out, then we invite you to the show and promote it a little bit.
Thank you, Heidi.
Women's topic, how to become visible.
All right, any other closing remarks? Mila, you didn't say very much. If you have a closing word, you're very welcome.
Sawubona.
That sounds very wise. What does it mean?
It's a Zulu greeting from South Africa that I'm really in love with for the last couple of weeks, because it means I see you and I'm here because I see you and recognize you.
Tell me the word again.
Could you write it down?
Sawubona. So it's kind of Nelson Mandela's Ubuntu.
And the response is Ngikona, which is I am here.
Very cool.
I shared this with Doug in another session.
No, actually, I picked it up from somebody else. It's the universe closing circles, but literally this crossed my path like 3 days ago from somebody else, and it was, wow, that's interesting.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And overall, thank you for coming. It's been lovely. So have a great day and see you again some other time.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.